A young nurse cared for a comatose millionaire until the day he awoke miraculously. Hello, everyone. Before we begin today's story, I have a small favor to ask. Please hit subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss our channel's new videos. It is quick, free, and the best way to support us in bringing you more dramatic stories. Your support means the world to us. Where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. Thank you very much. Today's story is titled, A Young Nurse Cared for a Comatose Millionaire Until the Day He Awoke Miraculously. Now, let us return to our main character. The fluorescent lights hummed softly inside Westbridge Private Hospital, a place that smelled faintly of antiseptic and quiet money. Anna Monroe, 26, walked down the long polished corridor clutching a file to her chest. Her sneakers squeaked lightly on the marble floor. She had been a nurse for almost 2 years, but today felt different. When Dr. Harris, the head of neurology, had called her into his office that morning, her stomach had tightened. She thought she had made a mistake with a patient's chart or missed a medication dose. Instead, he had simply said, "Anna, there is a special case that needs someone dependable." Now she stood outside the private suite at the end of the hall, her name badge trembling slightly in her hand. The brass plate on the door read Grant Carter, and beneath it, Private Care Authorized Personnel Only. Dr. Harris's words echoed in her mind. He has been in a coma for almost a year. The last nurse quit after 2 weeks. It is not for the weak-hearted. Anna took a breath and stepped inside. The room was nothing like the sterile white wards downstairs. It looked more like a luxury hotel suite, mahogany furniture, framed artwork, a wall of tall windows overlooking the city skyline. In the center, surrounded by quiet machines, lay a man who looked carved from stone. Grant Carter, 32 years old, youngest billionaire in the city, founder of Carter Enterprises. His photograph had once filled business magazines, his reputation a mixture of brilliance and ruthlessness. But now, motionless under crisp white sheets, he seemed smaller, almost fragile. Anna paused beside his bed. His chest rose and fell in a slow, mechanical rhythm. The monitor beside him blinked a steady green light. Beep, beep. Each sound felt like a heartbeat borrowed from another world. She whispered, "Good evening, Mr. Carter. My name is Anna. I will be taking care of you from now on." Her voice quivered slightly, but she forced a smile anyway. She hung her coat on the chair and began preparing the basin of warm water. The scent of soap drifted through the air as she rolled up her sleeves. Her hands trembled at first, every touch felt sacred. She had bathed hundreds of patients, but never someone whose name could buy the entire hospital. As she lifted the warm cloth to his arm, a strange stillness filled the room. For a moment she imagined he could feel it, that somewhere deep inside his silence he knew she was there. The thought startled her, but she kept moving. "Your vitals are stable," she murmured, glancing at the monitor. "That is good news, right? We will keep it that way." Her words were meant for herself as much as for him. She worked slowly, carefully, wiping his chest and shoulders, changing the linen beneath him. When she reached for the clean sheet, the heart monitor gave a slightly faster beep. She froze, eyes darting to the screen. Then it steadied again. "Just a glitch," she told herself, though her pulse did not agree. The night nurse on duty peeked in. "Everything all right, Anna?" "Yes," she said quickly. "Just finishing up." When the door closed, she sat in the chair beside his bed, exhausted but unable to leave. Outside, the city lights shimmered beyond the glass, distant and alive. Inside, the only sound was the quiet rhythm of the machines. She looked at the man sleeping before her, a man who had built empires yet now depended on her for every breath. "I do not know if you can hear me, Mr. Carter," she said softly, "but I will be here, every day, until you wake up." Her voice lingered in the still air. The monitor continued its patient pulse. For the first time since she entered the room, Anna felt calm. Tomorrow, the real work would begin. The next morning, the hospital was quieter than usual. A soft mist rolled over the parking lot, turning the city skyline into a blur beyond the glass. Inside room 803, Anna Monroe adjusted the blinds and checked the chart on her tablet. The readings were steady. Temperature normal. Oxygen saturation good. Grant Carter lay just as she had left him, his features calm, his dark hair brushed neatly across his forehead. He looked less like a patient and more like a man caught in an endless dream. The machines hummed, their rhythm almost like a heartbeat she had grown used to. Anna set out her supplies on the tray, a bowl of warm water, a folded towel, a new hospital gown. It was her second morning on his case, and already she was starting to memorize the layout of the room, the soft creak in the floor near the window, the faint buzz of the monitor when it switched modes, the way the morning light spilled across his face for exactly 15 minutes before noon. She placed the cloth in the warm water, wrung it out carefully, and began to clean his arm. "Good morning, Mr. Carter," she said softly. "It is another day, and you are still here. That is a good start." Her voice echoed gently in the quiet room. She talked as she worked, not because she expected an answer, but because the silence felt too heavy otherwise. "I heard on the radio that the mayor wants to rename the bridge where your accident happened. I wonder what you would think about that." She paused for a moment, glancing at his still face. "Maybe you would be mad, or maybe you would just say, 'Typical politics.'" A small smile touched her lips. "I like to think you were kind once, before all the headlines made you sound cold." She rinsed the cloth again, her movements slow and precise. The small actions felt sacred. Wipe, rinse, repeat. Care as routine had become her prayer. Hours passed in gentle repetition. She replaced the linens, checked his IV line, wrote her observations in the file. At one point she reached for the cup of water she always kept beside him and noticed a tiny reflection of light bouncing off the monitor screen. The numbers were steady. She nodded to herself, satisfied. When her shift ended, she stayed a little longer, sitting by his bedside with her lunch untouched. She opened a small paperback she carried everywhere, the one her late mother had given her. The title was half faded, "The Heart Remembers." She read aloud a few lines, her voice low and rhythmic. "Sometimes the soul waits for a sound, a touch, or a word, before it chooses to return." She looked up at him again. "So if you are waiting for something, Mr. Carter, I hope you find it soon." By evening, the sky had turned a deep shade of violet. Anna's replacement, Nurse Kelly, entered with a gentle knock. "You are still here," Kelly said with a knowing smile. "He is lucky to have you." Anna smiled faintly. "Maybe I am the lucky one. He makes me feel like what I do matters." Kelly laughed softly. "That is what all the good nurses say before they realize they have been here 12 hours straight." "I will leave in a minute," Anna promised. When Kelly left, Anna gathered her things, but something made her pause. The room felt different, almost charged. The monitor beeped normally, yet the air seemed heavier. She stepped closer, studying his face. Nothing had changed. Stillness, breath, the same quiet rhythm. And yet, she felt it again, that strange awareness, as if someone unseen had turned to look at her. "Maybe it is just me," she whispered, shaking her head. She reached out, gently adjusting the blanket over his chest. Her fingers brushed the edge of his hand and froze. Had he just moved? Her eyes darted to his hand. It was still. She waited, barely breathing. Nothing. She exhaled, forcing herself to relax. "I really need more sleep," she muttered. But when she turned to leave, she heard the faintest sound, a change in the beeping pattern. One note slightly offbeat. She spun back toward the bed, heart pounding. The monitor displayed a small spike, then settled. She stepped closer, voice trembling. "Mr. Carter? Can you hear me?" Silence. The line steadied again. She swallowed hard, pressing her palm against her chest to calm her heartbeat. "All right," she whispered, half smiling. "If that was you, I will take it as a hello." She sat back down, unable to walk away. For the next hour, she simply watched the screen, her eyes heavy but hopeful. The city outside glimmered in the distance, cars moving like veins of light through the night. When her eyes finally closed, she dreamed not of her small apartment or overdue bills, but of a quiet room filled with light, where a man she had never met before opened his eyes and said her name. In the corner of the room, the monitor blinked once more, a slightly stronger pulse on the screen. Beep, beep, beep. It was subtle, almost invisible, but enough to make the night nurse pause when she came in later. Kelly frowned at the data, glanced at the sleeping patient, and whispered under her breath, "Maybe it is nothing, or maybe he is fighting his way back." The room settled into silence again, the air alive with quiet promise. The next evening, the hospital lights dimmed to their night mode, washing the halls in pale gold. Anna Monroe returned for her shift, carrying a fresh thermos of coffee and a notebook tucked under her arm. Room 803 waited as always, quiet, sterile, and yet strangely alive. She entered and greeted softly, "Good evening, Mr. Carter. I hope you had a peaceful day." The familiar rhythm of the monitor answered her. Beep, beep, beep. Calm, steady, unchanging. She checked his vitals, adjusted his IV, and began her usual care routine. Everything appeared normal, yet something in the air felt expectant. As she gently wiped his forehead with a warm cloth, she caught a faint movement at the edge of her vision. It came from his right hand. Anna froze, eyes fixed. The fingers twitched, almost imperceptibly, then stilled again. For a long second she did not breathe. "Mr. Carter?" she whispered. The monitor kept its patient pulse, offering no reply. Her rational mind told her it was just an involuntary reflex, but her heart disagreed. She reached for his wrist, hesitated, then placed her fingertips lightly on his skin. Warm, human, alive. She leaned closer. "If you can hear me, try to move again." Nothing happened. Seconds stretched. Finally she sighed and drew back, feeling foolish. "All right," she murmured. Maybe it was just the light. She returned to the basin, wrung out the cloth, and continued cleaning his arm. Then she felt it a faint pressure against her wrist. Her breath caught. She looked down. His fingers had moved again, closing ever so slightly over her hand. "Grant," she said before realizing she had spoken his first name aloud. "Mr. Carter, can you hear me?" The heart monitor beeped faster, subtle but clear. Her own pulse raced to match it. She pressed the call button. "Dr. Harris? This is Nurse Monroe in room 803. I think the patient just moved." Within moments, footsteps echoed down the corridor. Dr. Harris entered with two other nurses, his expression skeptical but curious. "Tell me exactly what you saw," he demanded. Anna stepped aside. His hand twitched twice, then he gripped my wrist lightly. The heart rate spiked for 3 seconds. Dr. Harris studied the monitor, brows furrowed. The readings show minor fluctuation, but nothing conclusive. "Could be a reflex. We will run a neurological scan in the morning. N by cell. In main den brusses of palace is founds. In mine town. In by well. In main delight way." "Yes, doctor," Anna replied, though disappointment flickered in her eyes. After they left, she sank into the chair beside the bed, her hands trembling slightly. The excitement, the fear, and the fragile hope tangled together inside her chest. She looked at him again, his face serene under the soft light. "I know what I saw," she whispered. "You are in there somewhere, and I am not giving up." Outside, thunder rolled distantly, and rain began to tap against the window. Anna sat there long after her shift had ended, listening to the sound of the storm and the steady rhythm of his breathing. As the hours passed, she spoke quietly about her mother, about the loneliness of the night shift, about how strange it was to care so deeply for someone who had never spoken a word to her. Her voice filled the room like a lullaby. When dawn finally broke, she rose to leave. She paused at the door, glancing back at him one last time. The morning light spilled over the bed, touching his face, and for the briefest moment, she thought she saw the corner of his mouth move, just slightly as if he was trying to smile. Anna's breath caught again, but she said nothing. She only whispered, "I will see you tonight, Mr. Carter," and stepped quietly into the hallway, unaware that behind her, the monitor showed a stronger pulse than it ever had before. The next day began with a swirl of rain outside Westbridge Private Hospital. The sky hung low and gray, and inside room 803, the air seemed to hold its breath. Anna Monroe arrived early, her heart still echoing the moment she had witnessed last night. She had barely slept, replaying the movement of his hand over and over again in her mind. She entered quietly, her uniform crisp, her hair tied back. "Good morning, Mr. Carter," she said, voice soft but filled with energy. "It looks like the rain came back. Maybe it will help you rest." The monitor blinked in its steady rhythm, each sound strangely reassuring. She began her morning checks, blood pressure, temperature, oxygen levels all steady, all stable. The chart looked perfect, and yet she could not shake the sense that something inside him had changed. When Dr. Harris arrived later for his rounds, she told him, "I know it was not a reflex." He tried to hold onto my wrist. It felt deliberate. Dr. Harris sighed but nodded. "I believe you felt something real, Anna, but the scans this morning will tell us more." He placed a reassuring hand on her shoulder before leaving. Hours passed slowly. Anna sat beside Grant, reading aloud again from her mother's old book. Sometimes a single touch is enough to call the heart home. She read quietly, unaware that his heart rate was rising by a fraction. She glanced at the monitor, startled, then leaned closer. Mr. Carter, if you can hear me, give me another sign. Nothing. Only the soft rain outside and the hum of the machines. Then, as she adjusted his pillow, she saw it a flicker beneath his eyelids, a faint tremor of effort. Her own breath caught. You are trying, are you not? She whispered. Do not stop. For a few seconds, his fingers curled again, and this time, the movement was stronger. She could feel it, the pulse of life trying to break through. Anna hurried to press the intercom. Dr. Harris, it is happening again. The patient is responding. Within minutes, the team entered, surrounding the bed. The neurologist studied the monitor, eyes narrowing, as he watched the increasing brain activity. This is not a reflex, he said slowly. He is fighting his way back. Anna stood at the foot of the bed, her eyes glistening. For the first time, she let herself believe that he might truly return. When the doctors left, she stayed by his side, whispering softly, You are doing so well, Mr. Carter. Keep listening. I am right here. Outside, the storm began to ease, and a pale light broke through the clouds, spilling across the room. For a brief moment, it fell on his face, and she could have sworn she saw his lips part slightly, as if forming a word that had been waiting too long to be spoken. Anna smiled through tears and said, Welcome back, Grant. Whenever you are ready, I will be here. The following morning, sunlight spilled across the hospital floor, golden and warm after 2 days of rain. For the first time in weeks, room 803 did not feel heavy. Anna Monroe walked in with a quiet smile and a cautious kind of hope. She had stayed late the night before, long enough to see the faint movement in Grant Carter's eyes. Good morning, Mr. Carter, she said softly, drawing back the curtains. It is a beautiful day. Maybe that is a good sign. She checked the monitors and adjusted the IV. His vital signs were stronger than ever, the numbers glowing like small victories. The neurologist had confirmed it. His brain activity had increased dramatically overnight. The words echoed in her mind. He is waking up. Anna sat beside him and began her morning routine, her voice calm and steady. You know, everyone here keeps asking how I keep talking to you every day. I tell them it helps me too. Maybe we are both learning to heal. Her fingers brushed lightly against his hand as she replaced the linen. The contact felt electric, not from shock but from something deeper, something alive. Then she saw it, his eyelids fluttered again, and this time they stayed open. For a second she forgot how to breathe. His eyes, dark and unfocused, darted around the room before finding her. She froze, afraid to scare the moment away. Mr. Carter? She whispered. Can you hear me? His lips parted, dry and pale. The sound that came out was no louder than a breath. Where am I? Her heart leapt. You are in Westbridge Private Hospital. You have been here for a long time, but you are safe now. He blinked, trying to understand. How long? Almost a year, she said softly. You were in an accident. You have been asleep since then. He closed his eyes for a moment, a single tear sliding down his cheek. Anna quickly handed him a tissue and smiled through her own tears. You are doing great. You are here, and that is all that matters. Dr. Harris and 2 nurses rushed in, alerted by the sudden spike on the monitors. Anna stepped back as the team surrounded him, checking his responses and motor control. The doctor looked up, astonishment softening his usually stern face. Welcome back, Mr. Carter, he said. You gave us quite a scare. Grant's gaze shifted back to Anna, confusion mixing with gratitude. His voice was hoarse, almost a whisper. You stayed? She nodded, smiling gently. Every day. When the others left to prepare more tests, Anna remained by his side. The room felt brighter now, filled with a quiet warmth that had been missing for so long. Grant tried to lift his hand again, slower this time but deliberate. She reached out instinctively, and their fingers met halfway. His voice trembled, but the words were clear. Thank you, Anna. And it is a bond Seth 21 is the berating. Her eyes stung as she whispered, You are welcome, Grant. It is good to finally meet you. Outside, the sunlight broke fully through the clouds, painting the room in gold. For the first time, the sound of the monitor did not feel like a reminder of waiting. It sounded like a heartbeat coming back to life. The days that followed were filled with quiet miracles. Grant Carter's recovery was slow, fragile, but steady. Each morning when Anna Monroe entered the room, he was a little more awake, a little stronger. The sight of his open eyes no longer startled her. It filled her with a warmth that grew deeper every day. She helped him sit up for the first time, supporting his shoulders carefully. He winced but managed a faint smile. "Feels like I forgot how to move," he said, his voice rough. "That is all right," Anna replied gently. "Muscles need time to remember. We will take it one step at a time." Their sessions became a routine. She guided him through simple exercises, lifting a hand, moving a leg, breathing deeply. Between movements, they talked. At first, his words were broken and few, but soon his thoughts came easier. "I remember the bridge," he said one afternoon. "The sound of tires, then nothing." Anna nodded, her tone calm. "It is better not to push too hard. Memories will return when they are ready." He looked at her curiously. "You always talk like that, patient, steady. Do you ever get angry?" She smiled. "Only at bad coffee and broken vending machines." He laughed, the sound weak but genuine. It was the first time laughter had filled that room in almost a year. As the days passed, their connection deepened. Grant began to look forward to her voice more than the medicine rounds. When she spoke, his pulse steadied. When she left, he caught himself waiting for the sound of her footsteps returning. One evening, as the sun sank behind the skyline, Grant asked, "Why did you stay?" Most people would have given up after a month. Anna hesitated, brushing a strand of hair behind her ear. "Because I knew you were still in there. I could feel it." He studied her quietly. "You are either incredibly kind or incredibly stubborn." "Maybe both," she said softly. Their eyes met for a moment longer than either expected. The silence that followed was not heavy. It was full of unspoken gratitude, of something fragile and new. When Dr. Harris stopped by to review the latest test results, he smiled for the first time in months. "You are healing faster than any of us predicted, Mr. Carter. Keep this up and you will walk out of here soon." After the doctor left, Grant turned to Anna. "You heard him. Looks like you are stuck with me a little longer." She laughed quietly. "I think I can handle that." That night, after she left, Grant stared at the ceiling, the soft glow of the monitors casting pale light across his face. For the first time since the accident, he did not feel trapped in silence. He felt alive. And somewhere in that quiet space between sleep and waking, he heard her voice in memory, warm, steady, and real, guiding him back to life. By the second week of his awakening, Grant Carter was walking short distances with a cane and determination. The staff called it a medical marvel, but Anna Monroe called it hard work. Every step he took felt like a victory she shared with him. One afternoon, while she organized his medication tray, Grant sat quietly watching her. "Anna," he said slowly, "I have been trying to piece things together. The night of the accident, I remember headlights behind me and the brakes not responding. That is not something that just happens, is it?" Anna looked up, uncertain how to answer. "It could have been a malfunction," she offered, but her tone lacked conviction. Grant frowned. "My company car is inspected weekly. Something feels wrong." He rubbed his temple as fragments of memory flickered: an argument, a signature, a shadow of betrayal. Someone tampered with the car. Anna hesitated. She had seen the same suspicion in the accident report, but had kept it to herself until now. "When I reviewed your file, I noticed inconsistencies," she admitted quietly. "The police ruled it mechanical failure, but the damage pattern looked deliberate. I did not want to say anything until you were strong enough." Grant's gaze darkened, his jaw tightening. "Nathan," he muttered, "my half-brother. He was the only one who stood to gain if I was gone." Anna's chest tightened. "You should not jump to conclusions yet. Let the authorities review it properly." He nodded, but the fire in his eyes said otherwise. "No, Anna. If someone tried to end my life, I need to know who and why." She placed a steadying hand on his arm. "Then let us find out together. But promise me you will not let anger destroy what you have just regained." Her voice softened the sharpness in him. He met her eyes and saw not pity but courage. "You are braver than most people I know," he said. She smiled faintly. "I have had practice. My patients teach me every day." Outside, the late sunlight filtered through the blinds, streaking the room with gold and shadow. The air between them shifted, no longer nurse and patient, but two people bound by truth and something growing stronger than either of them had planned. The following week, Grant Carter insisted on leaving his hospital room for the first time. With Dr. Harris's cautious approval and Anna Monroe's help, he walked slowly through the quiet corridor toward the garden terrace reserved for private patients. The air outside was cool, touched with the scent of fresh rain and blooming jasmine. It was his first breath of open air in nearly a year. Anna watched him settle into the wheelchair near the railing. "You are making remarkable progress," she said proudly. Grant smiled faintly. "It feels good to feel the wind again. For a while, I thought I would never see the sky." He paused, his eyes distant. "But there is something else I need to do." She studied his face. "What do you mean?" "I called my legal advisor this morning," he said quietly. "I asked for copies of the accident report, my company's recent financial transfers, and my brother's communication records. If Nathan really tampered with my car, there will be proof." Anna frowned, concern etching her features. "That could be dangerous. You are still recovering. Do not rush into a confrontation." "I am not rushing," Grant replied. "I am preparing. Someone tried to take everything from me, my company, my name, my life. I cannot just look away." She reached for his hand, her voice steady but full of feeling. "Then promise me you will not do it alone." He turned his palm upward, letting her fingers rest against his. "I will not," he said softly. "You are the reason I am even standing here." That night, as the city lights flickered beyond the window, Anna reviewed the hospital's digital archive. Her instincts told her to look deeper. After hours of searching, she found a file that had been hidden under mislabeled entries. A maintenance report showing that the car's brake line had been replaced 2 days before the crash, signed by an employee who no longer worked for Carter Enterprises. Her stomach tightened. She printed the document and slipped it into a folder marked private. The next morning, when she handed it to Grant, his eyes darkened with realization. "This is it," he said quietly. "Proof?" Anna nodded. "We will take it to the authorities. Let them bring justice, not revenge." Grant looked at her for a long time. "Justice," he repeated, almost as if tasting the word. Then, softer, "For both of us." The monitor in his room beeped steadily behind them, a sound no longer of survival but of strength returning and truth waiting to be revealed. 2 weeks later, the truth came to light. The investigation confirmed what Grant Carter and Anna Monroe already knew: the car's brakes had been deliberately tampered with. Financial records traced the payment back to Nathan Carter, who had planned to take control of the company after Grant's death. When the police arrived at Carter Enterprises during a board meeting, Nathan tried to deny everything. But the evidence Anna had found spoke louder than any words. He was arrested on the spot. Grant stood beside Anna in the conference hall, his hands still weak but steady. Cameras flashed, reporters shouted questions, but he ignored them all. He looked only at her. "You saved my life twice," he said quietly. "Once in that hospital bed, and again here today." Anna smiled through the chaos. "I just did what was right." Weeks passed, and Grant's health continued to improve. The hospital room that once held silence was now filled with laughter. One evening, as the sun dipped behind the skyline, he asked her to join him on the rooftop terrace. The sky blazed gold, the same color as the morning he first opened his eyes. Grant took a small object from his pocket, a silver bracelet that once bore his patient tag, now reshaped into a ring. "You gave me back my life," he said softly. "Will you share it with me?" Tears welled in her eyes as she nodded. "Yes, Grant, always." The wind carried their laughter across the city, blending with the steady rhythm of life below. And for the first time, both of them knew they were finally healed by truth, by justice, and by love.